FM. We are back with Eugene Dean and Miss Arlene Brewster. So we've had these sort of travel things from the jump. What is your take on who monitors these things? Because I'm a DJ. I'm a DJ, and I've come across a lot of people that are just out and about. I just got off a plane, and so what are you doing on Front Street?
Right.
So who like how do you feel about how they keep an eye on this and regulate this? Because this is one of the things that sent us back into the the stay-at-home order and things like that. Is that, oh yeah, it's just the young people having parties and da da da, but there's a lot of other aspects not being talked about.
Yeah, for real. So, I mean, from a management perspective, my
Yeah, who's
understanding
managing
is that
this?
I understand that there's a lot of technology that's being engaged in order to manage people. I know there's all sorts of wristbands that people are given, and I understand that it's bracelets, or I don't know if it goes on your arm or your ankle or whatever it is that you're supposed to keep on, and it communicates with your phone, and so I know it's technologies, but the thing is this, right? All of that, however all of that is being managed, that's one thing. The challenge that we're having is around the discrimination part.
Yes.
That's where the focus is, because right, you can have provisions that you put in place and ask people to do things, but as soon as you say that if you fall in this category,
Yes.
right, then it's one set of rules, and if you fall in another category, then it's another set of rules, because now, right, it's like the goalpost is shifted, because we were concerned about people bringing the coronavirus into the country in a way that it spreads and people are impacted. So when you look at a proposed mandate that says if you've been inoculated for COVID-19 and you have a negative test, you can go home from the airport. If you have a positive test, you can still go home from the airport. Now, if you haven't been, then whether you have a negative or positive test, you have to quarantine.
Yes.
So now it's like, okay, you're telling me that it's my choice. You're also telling me that I don't have to disclose my choice. So how do I not disclose my choice if you put a mandate in place that differentiates based on that choice?
Yes.
And then how do you say it's just my choice if now, it's like I'm being punished for not making the choice you want me to make? So it's like, okay, so what are we doing? Are we trying to prevent coronavirus from coming into the country, or are we trying to drive people, right, to be inoculated with these with the Pfizer jab?
Yes.
That we have available here. That's apparently been given to us by the UK. So that's where it shifts. And now, to make it even worse, you're hearing in the media now that there is an event being planned around Bermuda Day, and now you're hearing about the safe key, and so now it's like, what's being rolled out now is an event that's looking like it's designed to set a precedence for what events look like going forward.
Yes.
That again is differentiating that if you've been inoculated, you can come to this event. If you haven't, now you have to go and take a test. Not only just to attend it, but to participate in everybody who works, all the entertainment.
Yes.
You're setting a precedent. So, Arlene, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, with the safe key, they've also added, if you have a negative test within the 3 days before the event, you can upload that with your safe key and you can attend the event. That's great for special events, but not for using in restaurants and shops and stuff if they plan on rolling it out throughout the island, because you're not going to keep going every 3 days to have a test to plan. So in case you want to go to dinner 2 days from now. But also with the safe key, they're asking at that event in particular that you have the We Health app so that they can see if you've been in any contact with any through the contact tracing. So it's still level upon level of information that you're going to need to specify.
And my concern is that I don't really understand all of this, and I'm sure most people don't understand it. And you know, we just heard things in the media, and it's like, oh yeah, I heard somebody talking about safety. So what does that mean? And this
Yes.
is why. And again, thank you for having the show. This is why things like this are important, because so much happens that we're unaware of, and then next thing we just find ourselves in a place where it's like, okay, so how did this happen? What do you mean? What do I have to do?
Yes.
What's the situation? Oh, so now this is how we do events?
Mhm.
Okay, who decided that?
Yes.
You know, I didn't know about that.
Yes.
You see what I mean? So these are like some of the unintended consequences. You get so many people that are just broadsided by things that they're totally unaware of. So now this sounds like we're being asked to engage some technological process that will govern our everyday affairs.
Yes.
You know, so okay, so I can sit outside of a restaurant, but I can only go inside if I make the choice you want me to make.
Yes. And
You know,
and to me, the challenging thing about making the choice you want me to make is that, you know, we don't trust the choice. You know,
hmm
so this is where it comes down to. You know, okay, you want me to eat that, but I don't know who made it. I don't know what's in it. You know, I don't know if it's gonna make me sick, and this is where you find a challenge to.
well, yeah, because you're being told that.
You're being told to.
that
It's being
safe.
forced on you, and but you know for in your mind that I don't really trust it. So
Well, it's very compromising, right? So
Yes.
we had a situation on the last show we were on where we were discussing this, and you know, Arlene was describing that people are already losing their jobs.
mm-hmm.
You know, and so we got into this conversation, which you know some people didn't really take too well, but we were just saying that, or I in particular was saying that leadership styles emanate through countries,
Yes.
and if as a country we're going down this path of discrimination,
Mm.
then that discrimination at the top would
Yes.
encourage others to feel confident to do the same thing. So this is what's already happening. People are saying, if you haven't been inoculated, then I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to come back in my house. Now, whether you were a caregiver,
Yes.
whether you were a cleaner,
And these things have
you know,
happened.
These things are happening
Yeah.
already. That's already happening. You know, and then now when you see this, and again, I don't know all the details. I'm just hearing about this event because, you know, I'm an event infrastructure provider.
Yes.
You know? Now, my company has been literally out of business for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who deals with events and
Yep.
entertainment has been out of work.
Yep.
Still maintaining fixed expenses, still doing our best to try to keep like some staff online and things of that nature. It's a struggle. It's very difficult. I'm impacted personally in a major way. And then all of a sudden, I get sent an RFP from government. Now, we do a lot of work for the Cultural Affairs Department.
Yes.
But now, if I take on this job,
Yes.
right, I have to follow the guidelines. So that means, like, you know, okay, either all my staff had to be inoculated against COVID-19,
Yes.
or we have to agree to this testing regime.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to make a decision now. Okay, do I need the money? Of course.
Yes.
Who doesn't? You see what I mean? Of course I need the money. You know what I mean? But, like, what are the long-term implications of the decision?
Mm.
Now, for me, I'm saying, like, I'm not supporting that. I'm not. Because in principle, right, if I support that, then I'm supporting this initiative to discriminate against people.
Yes.
And then next thing, we find that we've set a precedence that now gets embedded in the community, and then that becomes the so-called new norm.
Yes.
So not only am I not participating, right, I'm encouraging everybody who's being asked to participate in this event to decline.
Yes.
I know you need the money. I know it's extremely difficult out there. No, again, I can't make anybody do anything. I'm just asking everyone to look at the bigger picture. If we agree to this now, we are supporting, right, the implementation of policies and practices that discriminate against us. That discrimination will ruin the fabric of this country, just like all other discrimination has.
Yes.
And we're creating the conditions for people to rise up in ways that we don't want to see. Because people become marginalized in environments that discriminate. That's the reality of it. So in spite of the fact that we all need the money, in spite of the fact that we would all like to get back out, right? Let's make sure that we're doing it in a way that is really beneficial for our people and the country, and not in a way that benefits some and marginalizes others.
Okay.
Right, and on that note, of course, the financial is the biggest impact in Bermuda from the last 14 months that we've been dealing with it. We're hoping to be able to come out of it a bit, but with the discriminatory mandates, we're seeing not just a bit of financial differentiation, but the stress that it's causing people just waiting to go and do things, the stress that it's causing, like I said, the medical, the stress that it's causing people who have family overseas that haven't seen each other for the time that we've been shut down or been shut out, should we say. So I think that's led to a court case that we're seeing coming up as well. With
Yes.
It's so many layers in that court case. It's not just one aspect. It's not just the financial. It's not just the
It's
stress.
everything.
It's a compilation of a lot of, and of course we see that with the Crowd Justice Fund. If you need any information on it, and if you feel that you're in that situation, click on the link. I think Vibes Instagram has it, and you might be in that situation to help, to join the case that will help you. It's the overreach that we're talking about. We know things are going to have to be implemented. We know that, but it's the overreach.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with these things. And again, this is something that the whole country needs to stand for. Because one way or another, we're all going to be affected. If not directly, but indirectly.
Okay. So what would you say to those that they agree with you, but they're like, yeah, I'm just going to get the job. And then, the divide that comes afterwards and the little hate that spews out, which is a lot of it in the community right now.
Well, the thing is that unfortunately that's already been happening for a number of months, and now people who have gone against, their intuition are feeling that, the stress associated with that, because when you make a decision that you really don't want to make,
Yes.
it eats you from the inside out.
Yes.
It really does, and then it stresses you even more.
Right, that's a whole other level.
It's a whole next level of stress because if I say to you, like, drink this, and you really don't want to do it, and then your employer's looking at you and just kind of like implying that, like, well, you better drink that, right? It's consequences if you don't type of thing. And then you drink it, and then something starts happening to you.
I knew I shouldn't have.
You're like,
can I turn back the hands of time?
yeah. Like, why didn't I listen to my intuition?
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so this is where this whole thing around coercion comes in. And it's being done very subtly, in some instances, and very overtly in other instances. And we have to ask ourselves the question, are we trying to create an environment that allows us, right, to be healthy, right, and strong enough as a community to get through this pandemic?
Yes.
Or are we trying to drive people down a road to sign up for an agenda that they're not even, like, fully aware of? And that's where the concern comes in, because if you start to say, okay, here's benefits over here if you get inoculated,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, but we're going to have to treat you this way if you don't,
Yes.
then it's like, okay, so you're shifting the narrative now.
Yes.
I thought the concern was the coronavirus coming in. Now all of a sudden the focus seems to be on, like, numbers around inoculation.
Yes, definitely.
So what is it?
What is it?
And then that makes people even more concerned.
Yes, which takes me to this point. We got Dr. Armani Flood
Coming in.
joining us
Yes.
via phone line. And can you give me a little preview of the things that she will be talking about?
Well, it's really on the lines of what I'm just speaking about now.
And
As a medical professional, she's concerned about people having choice
okay.
and people being encouraged to do what they feel is in their personal best interest. And at the moment, she's concerned that the environment is not really conducive to that.
Yes.
And just like what we're talking about is people's feeling, forced to make decisions that they really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the adverse effects of that on the other side of it. You know what I mean? Or even like the stress associated with the pressure that people are feeling from family and friends, and other options that are available, because unfortunately it's not a scenario where even the medical community has really been invited to be involved in the conversation in a major way.
Yes.
And even talking about that.
Okay. So we're going to take a quick break, play a couple tunes, and then we'll be coming back and talking with Dr. Armani Flood.
All right.
And on the phone line, we have Dr. Armani Flood. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning. How's everyone?
Yeah, we're good.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Give thanks,
Good morning.
Dr.
Good
Flood.
morning. I always like to say at the outset that I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine and not an MD.
Okay.
So I want people to recognize that my opinions do come from my own perspective as an alternative medicine practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also a scientist, and I have some training and background in virology. I am not a virologist. So with that being said, I really represent a sector of the population who are generally lean towards alternative medicine. Yeah.
Yeah, give thanks. And, I appreciate all of that, actually.
And it's a large sector of the population,
For
I
real.
want to say.
And a growing sector.
Yes, that's true, too.
Because, and I think as we've learned, or had to learn, over the course of our human experience, is that it's important for us to embrace our uniqueness.
For
and
sure.
the differences that we have. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
really respect people for who they are and things of that nature. And that bodes well with the conversation that we're having now, which is around discrimination. And I know that the concerns that people are having in this scenario is that the messaging has been very one-sided. People are not hearing from a variety of even medical professionals.
Yeah.
There's been a very narrow view that's been adopted as the view, and pretty much people are being asked to toe the line and follow that. And so in that, there's an inherent disrespect for everything that exists outside of that, whether that's intentional or not. It's just a reality.
It is a reality.
And
I'm very familiar with that as an alternative medicine practitioner. Is that generally speaking, the mainstream approach does dominate the conversation, and I'm really accustomed to having to stand up and represent the other side of that coin. So this really comes, quite naturally to me, and because of my work with that population, I have really experienced, perhaps more than other health practitioners, the anxiety, the fear, the tension, the sadness, the cries and the moans of this population, feeling neglected, feeling left out of the conversation, and their needs and their desires and their healthcare choices just completely being ignored. And that is not, in my opinion, the best way for us to approach this problem of COVID-19 and the COVID-19 pandemic. The SARS coronavirus is with us now. It is here to stay. And I think that is a critical piece that we really have to keep on the forefront of the conversation. What we need, in my mind, to be looking at now are safe and equitable management of the SARS-2 coronavirus as we move beyond the pandemic. You see, because it is dynamic and it's constantly changing. Are we moving with those changes? Are we keeping up? Are we living up to the promises that were set out in the beginning of this whole episode, you know? Because I can recall at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was nervous, afraid. We were faced with a new foe that we were really unprepared for and unequipped for. So everyone, I believe, there was tremendous buy-in. You know, the majority of the public were on board, and there was just an excellent feeling that the pandemic was being excellently managed. People were following the rules, and for the most part, there was calm in the land, and there was it was difficult, but people were tolerating. And at that time, promises or expectations were set as to how the management of this issue would go forward, and people were made aware that vaccines were in the development, and that once the vaccines were available, we would make them available to people. And many people couldn't wait. They were very hopeful for the vaccines. And we were told that when we reached a certain percentage of a vaccination rate, then we would have this wonderful thing called herd immunity. And once herd immunity was achieved, we would all begin our transition back to normal life. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Do you believe that has happened?
Well,
Because I don't.
no.
No, and even at the herd immunity of 70%, there's still 30% of people that are choosing a different road.
Well, this is it. And so that goal would have allowed for a certain population not to be vaccinated. It was expected and understood, or it seemed to be, that everyone would not opt in to the vaccination. And so people maybe who didn't want to be vaccinated began making their choices and decisions, whatever those were based upon, or considering their own health condition and whether vaccination would be appropriate for them or not. But then suddenly it all changed. And now we're really in a situation where it's either vaccinate or suffer the dire consequences. And those dire consequences don't even, from this perspective, include dying of the disease. Because the truth is that we recognize, science now recognizing, that the SARS-2 coronavirus, and anyone out there can correct me if I'm wrong, is actually one of the least deadly of all of the SARS coronaviruses, either the SARS-1 or the MERS. It has a lower mortality rate than either of the others.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that we find ourselves in such a state of emergency, if I may, over this particular SARS coronavirus? Now, that's a question that I'm sure that virologists can probably weigh in and talk about transmissibility and talk about viral, what do you call it, transition, new virus
Variants,
type,
yeah.
Variants, yeah.
variants, et cetera. And maybe there's something there that I'm not addressing here. But my point is that people's healthcare choices have really, really been impacted upon in a way that I just don't believe that it is fair or equitable. I would like to see more options on the table. I would like to see more voices being involved in the decision-making process across all sectors of the community, including conventional medical practitioners, doctors, scientists, virologists, infectious disease persons, and alternative medicine practitioners, and the general public at large.
Mm-hmm.
That sector who choose not to opt into the Phase 3 trial, or even at the conclusion of the Phase 3 trial who choose not to opt into the vaccination and prefer instead to take their own measures and accept their own risks, as well as that great and growing population of persons who it is not in their health best interest to use the inoculation at this time.
Mm-hmm.
They may be waiting to hear a broader report on the safety for their particular population, whether they have autoimmune diseases, whether they have undiagnosed allergies and sensitivities and drug interreactions. We need to wait for that information to unfold, and in the meantime, must they be punished? And let's be clear, to have your travel restricted based on your financial ability, based on your status with respect to your employment, and even based on your own level of response to being locked in. You know, people do have anxieties around that. Those things need to be taken into consideration in a much better fashion than what they are now. We have technology. Technology can be brought to bear to make sure that people follow the quarantine rules. I personally thought that the map that the government drew up in the beginning of testing on arrival, testing on day 3, testing on day 8, testing on day 14, I personally thought that it worked fine. I did it. I was not uncomfortable with it. I followed all of the rules when I traveled in January. The majority of the people follow the rules. Why on earth would you go ahead and punish the law-abiding citizens for the bad behavior of a few when there exist means and measures that can be taken to isolate those persons? If we have true tracking, then we should know who those people are who violated that regulation,
Mm-hmm.
and we should hold them to task.
Yes.
Right? Technology exists to know exactly where I am at any one time, and technology even exists to know who enters my home, to be honest. So I may be much more willing to pay for those kinds of measures than to pay the $4,000 requirement to isolate myself at one of Bermuda's finest hotels. Could we not even have gone so far as to engage the services of smaller guest houses or properties that have had to shut down because of the pandemic? They'd be willing to open their door. We could have done so many other things, and that's why people are convinced that the measures in place are punitive as opposed to helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
That is why.
That's the thing, and the other thing is that now, you're discriminating because it's like you created a class system.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So we were concerned about the coronavirus coming in, but even if you're positive, if you've been inoculated, you can go home.
And let me extrapolate on that. We know the mantra is follow the science. Okay, we recognize several things. I want to acknowledge that so far, apparently tests have shown that inoculated persons are less likely to transmit the disease.
Mm-hmm.
But transmit it they still can. Not only that, are we using measures to determine the viral load of persons who have been inoculated even beyond their 2 weeks' time? And are we monitoring the viral load of those persons who were inoculated early on? If we don't have those actual numbers to put in a spreadsheet and look at and truly identify what are the risk factors of travelers. And I remember looking at, I do believe, one of the government's reports that showed that out of 2,500 or so positive cases, 228 were imported. That's 10 or 11%, 10%. So is it right? And if that was even tracked down to 2 or 3 persons who violated the rules, is that a strong enough reason to take and lock people up who may become ill during their quarantine period? What measures have been taken for their health care during that time? there are so many holes in this plan that is just not funny. And we're talking about millions of people. If we look at the number of inoculated persons throughout the world who may wish to visit Bermuda and will not or cannot based on these regulations, it's really mind-boggling. And I just do not believe that it is the best and most appropriate and most equitable way forward. And I truly believe that people have every right to raise their voices against these measures.
So Dr. Flood, I'll say this, right, because we're trying to keep to the schedule, but I just want to make sure that you get this one thing in, right? One of the things you talked about is having options on the table. And at the moment, you know, there are options like ivermectin that are on the table. Yet, there's immense pressure from several high-ranking officials in the medical community that are pushing hard against treatments like ivermectin. What is your view, quickly in closing, about, you know, the pushback on treatments when normally in scenarios like this, treatment is prioritized?
You're right. And thank you for saying that. You're so right. I get a little passionate sometimes, and I forget my own platform. So I am a staunch advocate for the use of ivermectin. Ivermectin is a drug that is finding its way into many, many jurisdictions as an approach to managing COVID-19. And so first I want to say one of the ways forward in any pandemic situation, and many prominent health officials have already stated that vaccination alone is not going to, quote, save us, quote unquote, save us from the SARS coronavirus and the COVID-19 epidemic. Vaccination alone is not going to do it, even if we vaccinate every single person on the planet, which is impossible, number one. And number two, then every human born then needs to be inoculated at birth. So, okay, let's go ahead and say that we recognize. Now, managing any disease, of course, our first-line approach has generally been treating. So we now have wonderful, much more advanced management skills for COVID-19, whether persons are extremely ill, partially ill, and et cetera, and that is changing and emerging every day. And ivermectin is really, in my opinion, in the forefront of this battle against management of the disease. So ivermectin is a safe drug. I'm appalled. I'm really saddened to hear some of our prominent health officials speaking so adamantly against the use of ivermectin. I just don't believe that it's called for. I have not come across it in my own research. And if they have research to support the claims that it is a dangerous and deadly drug, they really should tell us more, because ivermectin has been used for 40 years safely and successfully throughout the world. It is not, I repeat, it is not a veterinary medicine. However, the same way that antibiotics are used in pets, steroids are used in pets, many of the treatments that are used in humans are also used in pets. So there's nothing unusual about that. Yes, the formulations are different, the dosages are different, and I discourage anyone, no one should use a veterinary formulation for any human use. I've heard of people wanting to use their pet's antibiotic, and this is just as silly and just as dangerous. So, no, it's incorrect, and I wish that they would not do that. I just don't think it's helpful. And as I said, if they know something that the rest of us who are touting the use of ivermectin don't know, I wish that they would just be more transparent about it. One thing that's been missing from this whole pandemic management is just a transparent and open, intelligent dialogue and discussion. But what we find instead is that a sector of information is completely whitewashed by the media, by the press, by the authorities, and it just makes no sense in my mind. I really don't get it. Countries that are using test and treat on the test positive of patients testing positive for coronavirus, they're administered ivermectin freely and across the board, over the counter. And so this medicine has held up to the scrutiny of time, and it is a safe medication. I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that. That is not to say it is 100% effective or 100% safe for everyone, but a doctor can make that intelligent decision, and doctors in the community are making that decision every day. And so I would encourage anyone to visit my website, BIRA, BIRA, BDA.com, and learn more about ivermectin, I have some very useful links that will link persons to the website that was developed by the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance. This is a group of prominent physicians and emergency medication specialists who brought ivermectin's use to the forefront and who formulated effective protocols and are sharing these protocols with the rest of the world, and many jurisdictions are using it with success. We can do the same thing. We could be a shining gem in the Caribbean, opening our borders to travelers with safe ivermectin use, safe management skills, safe tracking and tracing, safe technology, and we would have peace within our own borders by respecting the rights of all persons, whether they choose to be inoculated or not.
Well, give thanks, Dr. Flood. What a wonderful way to close this segment. Really appreciate you calling in. Thank you for all the information that you've shared. We definitely all recognize that we need more of this. And and again, I'm thankful to Vibe for allowing us to host this conversation on their station.
We are there at North Shore Medical helping people with all of their COVID-19 needs, whether it be early treatment and intervention and management, whether it be long-haul post-COVID, and et cetera. So give us a call, and we're there for you.
All right. Give thanks.
Okay. Give thanks to all of you, and have a wonderful and blessed day. And we will win this struggle. We simply must keep it up.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye
Peace
for
and
now.
love.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Armani Flood. Thank you very kindly for those words. And we will be opening up the phone's lines for a few minutes. I had some callers trying to call while she was talking. So we will be opening up the phone lines. You will be live, so you know, don't curse. And Miss I'm about to call you doctor, man. Eugene and Miss Arlene will be, taking some questions from some of our callers. So, we'll be taking calls. And 232-1033, 503 FM. Honey Frith. Dr. Frith.
Good morning. Good
How
morning.
are you? I was calling you Kunai.
No. Don't turn that corner.
Don't turn that corner.
Don't turn that corner.
Oh, boy.
How you doing
Good
this
morning.
morning?
Good morning to you all, and good morning to your listening audience.
Good morning.
Yes. Greetings. Give thanks.
So, Dr. Frith. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, she's still there. She's still there. Yes, she is. Yeah, so Dr. Frith, give thanks for coming on today. And, we've been having a wonderful conversation. We just had Dr. Flood on. And, she shared a lot of valuable information. We're talking about the discriminatory mandates that are being put on. And then even beyond that there's an effort being made to set a precedence for how large events run, and there is a discriminatory thread run through that process as well. So just want to get your views initially on how you feel about all of this and the energy or the impact that it's having on our community.
Yes. Well, it's unfortunate, Eugene, that those who are making a choice and who are being told that they can make a choice, that they are actually being discriminated against when they don't make the choice of choice.
Yes.
Okay. We have all experienced discrimination in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
It's not racial discrimination, religious discrimination, discrimination for belonging to various organizations, or, whatever we choose that seems to step outside of the norms. People raise an eyebrow, question, think something's wrong with you or weird about you. So having experienced discrimination myself, you would think one would be less likely to discriminate against someone. But this is certainly not the case. And I think a lot of it comes across from the information that we are being fed. And so people are under the impression that if you choose not to get the vaccination, that you are not protecting them, or that they should call you out in some way, shape, or form, because the science that, X, Y, and Z is going to play out if you get the vaccination, and then you can protect me. And so I find this very confusing, simply because in naturopathic medicine, when someone comes in to me and they ask for recommendations or advice on taking an herb, I don't then say to them, okay, you're taking this herb to protect your immune system, but you need 10,000 other people to take the same herb so that you are protected. Okay, think about this.
Right.
And they're going to look at me with a really perplexed look and say, why should 10,000 other people have to take the same herbs that I'm taking in order for me to protect my immune system? And so along with that, I'm going to tell them, then you have to sign a waiver that if you get any adverse reaction from these herbs, that you cannot sue me, you cannot make me take responsibility financially for your losses or your grief or your pain. So none of these things are being looked at, where people actually have the wherewithal, the common sense, if you will, to ask questions. And if you do, you are being labeled as an anti-vaxxer. Come on, Eugene, imagine if you took your car to the mechanic and the mechanic said to you, I'm not sure that, I'm going to be able to fix your car, but when you drive out of the driveway, if it breaks down, you have to sign this waiver because you can't bring it back.
Right. Yeah, for real.
So people are not thinking that other people have the right to question without being humiliated, slandered, discriminated against. So basically, that's how I see it through my lens. I've been able to look at it from many different directions, and still can't understand why we are being told that the vaccine is not mandatory and it's not against the law not to be vaccinated, but you're going to have people discriminate against you. You're going to have employers threaten their employees that if they don't get the vaccine, that their jobs are being threatened. This is very real. This comes in to me on a daily basis. So you're not giving people the flexibility or even the freedom to be able to make a choice, because the pressure is so intense that most people are afraid to make a choice.
Right. Yeah, for real. And just the part about the employment side, right? It's interesting because you get into this whole liability conversation, and everyone, well, most people, I'm sure, are aware of the fact that there, in most countries or many countries, there's legislation in place that protects the pharmaceutical companies from any claims as it relates to adverse effects.
Yeah.
You actually have to prove that there was malicious intent in order for them to be liable for anything. So let's take it a step further. There's like a 3 or 4 page contract that you have to sign prior to getting inoculated, in Bermuda. And so when it comes to employers or persons who are saying, well, if getting inoculated is going to be made a term of my employment, then shouldn't the employer be responsible for any adverse effects associated with it? And why, if everyone is saying that this is so safe, do you have to sign off, right, in a way where you nor your next of kin nor any successors or anyone can make any claims against the government for any adverse effects? Why are we going through such great lengths to protect everyone involved with the administration of this treatment, when on the other side is being said that it's just so safe?
Well, I think also, Eugene, we have to look at the so-called science, and I say that not in a disrespectful way, because I have a great deal of respect for allopathic science and allopathic medicine because it certainly is important to our community and it certainly has its place in our healthcare system. But certainly, you know, when you look at the money, and we have to look at the money and who's making the money, and that's being made public right now.
Yes.
Who's making the money, and so the fact that the bulletproof vest, known as the vaccine, actually has holes in it because you can still develop COVID, still transmit COVID. That is supposed to be a protection for your family, your loved ones, in particular, the older generation. But in essence, there's no guarantee there because we now know that even though you've been vaccinated, you can still catch COVID, transmit COVID, and affect those very people that you are being told you have to protect. So there is a lot of questions around people being vaccine hesitant, as the phrase or the label is now being put out there. They're hesitant simply because they have lots of questions. They're not feeling comfortable. There's insufficient data to substantiate that there is not going to be an adverse reaction for people who have underlying conditions, i.e. cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disease. There's simply not enough data. And if you go on the CDC website and if you go to the UK NHS website, you will see that they are being advised not to take the vaccine because there is insufficient data. But we're not getting that information here. If we didn't do the research for ourselves, then we would not even be aware that we are putting ourselves at risk because there is insufficient data on persons who have underlying health conditions.
Yes. Yeah. It's insufficient data on everything, which is why it is not approved. And what are your thoughts about the fact that so much focus is being put on a, I guess, inoculation versus treatment? And, to get into solutions, because a lot of people say, okay, if you're concerned about what's going on now, then what do you actually recommend? What's your thoughts about, the absence of treatment in the conversation and what's actually available?
Well, I mean, I have to, again, I've been on the front line of this pandemic since last year when it started. Actually, in February of last year, I was air ambulanced out with my dad to Hopkins. And so we made it back home just prior to the island shutting down. But COVID was alive and well in the U.S. at that time. It's just that the information wasn't coming out as quickly. And I just want to say that when you look at the percentage of people who recover, I think it's something like a 95% recovery for people who develop COVID. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. That is a really high percentage of recovery, by the way. And so you are always going to have people die every year from the flu. But we don't even hear about the flu anymore. It doesn't exist for whatever reason.
Yeah, very interesting.
It is very interesting. The common cold has gone away. Allergies have gone away. It's very, very interesting. But given the fact that there's such a high percentage of persons that do recover from COVID, and I can tell you that people have chosen to even go the herbal way to battle COVID. And I know it works because I've delivered herbs to people since last year who have called and said, listen, I have COVID. How can you help me out? I don't want to do over-the-counter. I don't want to do prescription. I don't want to do any of those things. And then you have people also that come in and say, listen, I'm very interested in protecting my immune system so that I at least have some shield there,
Being proactive.
Yes, being proactive because I don't know who's asymptomatic. I don't know. And even if you look at the asymptomatic people, they have no idea. I have friends. It's like, Connie, where did this come from? I have no idea. I never had any symptoms. I never had a fever, a cough, a headache, a joint pains. I never had anything. So, given the fact that there's such a high percentage of recovery for a lot of people, and as I say, I am not dismissing those who have passed. Certainly condolences have gone out from the whole community to those who have lost loved ones as a result of this virus. And for those who have had long-term COVID, I'm sure that is not a pleasant thing to have to experience either. But when you look at the bigger picture, you have a huge percentage of people that are recovering from this thing. And I've seen it myself, Eugene. I have no reason to put information out there that is misleading. I've literally seen people take herbs and within 3-4 days, they're back up on their feet. So it really gives people the option in their mind to say, do I really want to invest in a vaccine? Or am I just going to coast along and protect my immune system naturally or without an invasive substance that no telling what the outcome is going to be for me? And there are no guarantees. I have no safety net financially or otherwise
Exactly.
because I signed a waiver.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even like this is a conversation about natural remedies, versus allopathic or even, herbs versus vaccines. It's not a broad conversation. The reality is that this medical treatment is unapproved. It's not approved. There hasn't been any testing, and it's very concerning because, and again, yes, we're having a conversation about discrimination. And the reason we're going to these links to talk about these things is that, right, we're showing that people have valid reasons for having concerns.
Mm-hmm.
People have valid reasons for choosing not to go down the road of being inoculated. In this instance, people who have been supportive of other vaccines and things of that nature for years, for all of their life, are choosing not to go down this road because in this particular instance, there is insufficient evidence, as stated by the manufacturers and by the governing health authorities,
the CDC,
to approve it. So it's not approved. So in reality, we don't know. So you can trust someone who tells you that it's safe. You can trust someone to say that, over 2 months of a trial, we gathered enough information to suggest that you should be okay. We could even trust that, we've done trials now on pregnant women for 4 months, but pregnancy doesn't last for 4 months.
Well, we're not looking past the 4-month period to the 9 months to, once the baby's born.
Exactly. Well, we can because we haven't had the time. And that's been the whole scenario. So the reason we're having this conversation now is because people are literally being attacked, right, for being concerned, in spite of the fact that the concern is well justified. And so what we're trying to do is push back on this pressure, which is leading to the introduction of mandates that are discriminatory, that is creating more and more fear and more division in our community. Division in the workplace, division in social circles, division in families.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's very, very interesting because it almost seems to be a conversation that comes out of both sides of the mouth. Okay, and I'm saying that because I just saw a video of the opening of one of our new facilities.
Oh wow!
And I just saw the group that gathered there as a result of that opening, and I can tell you, all of the so-called protocols put in place for social distancing and mask wearing and the like weren't being exercised. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth where you want the public to do one thing while you do something else.
Well, apparently you can.
Well, I mean, you can. Yes, you can.
You shouldn't, but you
Well, you
can.
shouldn't. Yeah, you know.
But you shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
Bingo. But
You
you
definitely
shouldn't.
shouldn't. And this is what we're experiencing. Even saying it is your choice, it's your choice to do it. But at the end of the day, there's immense pressure coming down from the government that is feeding into employers, that is also feeding into family members that are pressuring people. And a number of people have made the decision to get inoculated based on that pressure or based on fear of privileges that, they have enjoyed all their life being taken away from them,
Yes.
i.e., travel.
Yes,
And
indeed.
just a note on the travel, a lot of the pushback from government about the people who were hesitant about the vaccine is saying trust your source, get trusted sources. Don't get the misinformation from this place, that place. But the information that's coming out from the other side, their side of getting the vaccine, in order to do these things, is misleading as well. Because we had a gentleman just on Friday saying that the cruise ships, yes, he said all the ones that mostly Bermudians deal with will require vaccination. I have at least 5 other cruise ships that don't require vaccinated people. They have many layers of safety protocols in place, from their staff being kept in a bubble for 2 weeks before they board, and then the negative test being, just before boarding for the passengers. So it's still one-sided. You just have to keep digging and digging and digging.
And I think it's a shame that, we are not allowed to exercise critical thinking. That really the whole herd immunity is almost an insult to human intelligence when you think about it, because when you watch herds being moved from one pasture to the other, it's always a sheepdog or some sort of other animal or person that is moving that herd without question.
Right.
That herd just moves. Without question. This disturbs me greatly. It infringes on our ability to exercise our human right and our freedoms. And certainly we have to also look, Eugene, at within the medical fraternity, within the allopathic community and the scientific community, doctors and scientists are actually coming out and saying, we're not comfortable with this. We have local doctors who are not comfortable with it. We heard the chief medical officer say he cannot, or the CEO, I'm sorry, say that he cannot make people get the vaccination. And so having all of this information saying that, you can't stop people from not getting the vaccination, or you can't make them do it, people have to have a reason behind that. And it's this information that I'm looking at. I'm saying even the scientific community is divided on this one.
Right.
You have doctors who are not in favor. I know of local doctors who have advised people that have chronic underlying conditions, listen, I think maybe you should wait this one out because this is a risk for you.
Right.
They're giving good, sound advice. So I don't want it to come across as if we're putting all doctors and all healthcare professionals in the same basket, because that's not the case. Globally, you are looking at the divide in the scientific community with regard to the efficacy of this vaccine. Now, in a short period of time, you're already seeing the side effects: paralysis, anaphylaxis, lumps in the lymphatic system, blood clots, just adverse reactions. And the other thing that's coming into me, Eugene, is many people who have taken the first shot are very reluctant to get that second shot. And then they're looking at the fact that they're going to have a booster, and then next year there's going to be a different variant, so they're going to have another vaccine. So when does it stop? It's this ongoing commitment here without having the data and the results to present to people and say this is going to be the outcome.
Yes,
giving
definitely.
them a little bit more information than what they presently have to work with. So that has been what's coming into me as a naturopath, and certainly when we look at all the other drugs out there that have been, as I say, the ivermectin and the hydroxychloroquine and the like that have been out there and are being used in other parts of the world. I mean, we've seen India, manufacture
Yes.
ivermectin now at a rapid rate and dispense it to their citizens.
Yeah, for
Because,
real.
yeah, they're using this as a method. They're being proactive and they're using this as a method of protection because they have been caught off guard. They're caught in the dark, however you
Yes.
want to put it.
Yes, for real.
And now they're getting results. So we can't say that this is the only thing that is going to protect our community. We
Yes,
can't say
and
that.
definitely. And on that point, we're gonna have to bring it to a close, unfortunately, because this is such a great conversation. But we do have to open up the lines for more callers. I really appreciate you calling in, Dr. Frith. Again, like really enlightened information, and I'm sure the community appreciates you contributing to this conversation as well. So give thanks.
Thank you, Eugene, and I'm sure there's a great deal of good information coming out from your panel to filter into the community, just to give people something else to think about, weigh it in a different way, and maybe perhaps not be so discriminatory in their actions and words. We are not plague carriers. Boy, I saw that and I was like, oh my God, all of you who are unvaccinated are plague carriers. Woo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hate. So give thanks and really appreciate you coming on. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
too.
Peace and
Bye
love.
bye.
503 FM. Thank you to Dr. Connie Frith. And we'll be back on the other side. And we'll be opening up these phone lines again with Eugene Dean and Miss Arlene Brewster. After this song, we will be opening back 3 FM, your energy station. We're live with Arlene Brewster and Eugene Dean, and the phone lines are now open. We're going to go back to the phone lines. Hold on one second. Good morning, 503 FM. You are live. Do not curse.
Morning, Chubb. Morning. Thanks for picking up the call. I just want to say a couple of things. I really want to thank your guests for coming in. Really, Jean, Arlene, the doctors. Thank you so much. You guys are putting your names and reputations on the line. So I really want to thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of other things that I really come to my attention when tackling this discriminatory rules, laws that's coming into play, because it affects my family. I have family abroad. I have a young child abroad, under 10 years old. Want my family to come back. I want to travel back and forth. And the fact that we are not vaccinated, our child's not vaccinated, these rules really affect me personally, straight off. And I've had family members, old school friends, that a couple of old school friends that have passed away because of this virus or dealing with this virus. So I'm totally sensitive to the people who have lost siblings, family members about this. But, you've put in something in place and you talk about the science. And when you talk about science has different categories. So if someone says to me, you want to talk to me about science, talk to me about science in each category. There was a caller that called in earlier, and he was talking about the percentages of deaths and the rate and all that. That is mathematical science. And he was showing and talking about how mathematically this doesn't make any sense. And when you take the vaccine, they say the probability of you passing this on, etc., is low. But it's still a probability of you passing it on. Nobody knows. And the other thing with dealing with the doctors, my hat is awesome. Thank you so much, because when you talk about the chemistry in dealing with tackling this virus, there's a chemical way of dealing with it through chemistry to understand the biological way our body is affected by this virus. And we're using chemistry to tackle this. But the main narrative now is only one side of how you were dealing with a disease. You can deal with a disease to prevent your body getting it, and that is through vaccines, jabs, or whatever. But there's the other part of when you get it, the therapeutics. And I feel that the therapeutics are not even getting any attention, hardly any attention from our government agencies. You're a health department. You should be talking about therapeutics, real working therapeutics. You should be inviting the doctors who are treating patients and how to deal with this and how your recovery. I mean, I can listen to a brain surgeon all day and he can operate on my head, but I'm not going to listen to a person who just studies in a lab about brain surgery. The one I want to trust is the one that is actually dealing with the patient and getting them to recover. So we need to hear more of the GPs who are actually helping people to recover. And I feel that we're not getting that.
All right. Thank you very much, caller, and thank you for the input. The lines are still open.
Thank you very much, everybody, and have a blessed day.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And I'll let somebody else have a time because there's so much more of this, and I'm hoping somebody else would even touch on the psychology of fear on this island, and we need to deal with that.
Yes,
The psychology
for
of fear. So let's deal with that. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah, give thanks. Yeah, that whole thing around fear is real.
Yes.
Even the comment about doctors coming out is they're fearful. But go ahead, we can go to the callers.
All right, we lost that call. The lines are still open, and we are talking about the discrimination between the vaccinated and unvaccinated. Caller, you're live on the air. Do not curse.
Good morning. I want to say thank you, first of all, for the station and for all those who are there for having this conversation. Because it's been a very one-sided conversation up to this point from our government, and it's how they're basically censoring people who have a different opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's really concerning to me because we should be having a balanced dialogue about our concerns, and there are many concerns. How about this? They spent time with us, asking us questions about the parish schools all during the pandemic, and they haven't asked us anything about their border policy and how it impacts us as stakeholders. It's just bizarre. And it's like when the fact that they are treating the vaccinated differentially, it's according to the science, quote unquote, when there's still a chance that they can transmit and pick it up, the virus. I mean, if they're concerned about the fact that anyone could be a carrier, then they should just leave it as it is. You get vaccinated if you choose to, and I want to say that I respect everybody's decision. If you've been vaccinated, that's a choice, then I expect my choice to be respected as well, because I've made my choice based on an intelligent decision. But from the top, it comes across as those who have not chosen the way of the vaccine are conspiracy theorists. They are selfish. They are
Right, we saw that in that there is no
not
conversation.
responsible.
Yeah.
And it's like, how could you on one side say it's a free choice, your personal choice, talk to your doctor, but then say this is the only way, like this is the way forward for everybody, and even those who I know who've had it, like people have had COVID-19, like should they be getting vaccinated? They have antibodies. Are we checking into that? Are we checking to see like maybe people who are asymptomatic that actually have antibodies before they get vaccinated?
Mm.
And let's say those in January who would have been the first to get the vaccine, like are they still viable? We don't know, but they got the little QR code now. I just think it's bizarre that we're not looking into these things more, doing research on our end. The whole ivermectin thing just blows my mind. And this thing has been around for many years. Yes, it's been repurposed, but it's showing effectiveness around the world. And if you like try to find anything on it that's positive, it's so hard to find now because it's almost like it's being scrubbed. But and even like the company Merck came out with a statement to say that you shouldn't use it. FDA saying you shouldn't use it. But meanwhile, there are doctors across the world that are using it, and people are giving testimonies of how it's helped their whole family and bounced back within a day. But the mainstream media is not covering that. It's just bizarre. And so when you only hear one side of a story, you have the red flags start going up,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And the attitudes that we're seeing across our little island, which does not need any more reasons for division, because of our vaccination status, and we're just saying it's private, but here's the thing. They're not even saying if you're in quarantine or you've come into close contact with someone and you can go to work in 4 days. Well, if I don't show up to work in 4 days, I must not be vaccinated, in it. So wouldn't that be giving away my status? And if I come back in 4 days, wouldn't I have to show that I'm vaccinated? So it's double speak, in my opinion.
Yes.
Where on one side it's okay, and it's your personal choice. I mean, when you're vaccinated, you're purportedly protecting yourself and your family and everybody else. So let it just end there. Like, if you're vaccinated, great, good for you. If you're not, good for you. At the border, you come in, you do your negative test. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be anything different than what we've been doing because of the actions of one or two people who may not have obeyed quarantine. Then enforce it then.
Okay.
Enforce the quarantine. I'm
Paula?
100% fine with that.
Paula?
I just think we're not having enough conversation about it, and this is across the world. It's just it's bizarre. You're only hearing one thing, and so it makes you feel depressed out there, even within families and stuff, because there's people, maybe husband's vaccinated, wife is not.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Definitely
just let it be a
division,
personal
yeah.
choice,
Yes.
and leave it at
is.
that.
Yeah.
Well,
Leave
thank
it
you.
at that. You.
Thank you very much for those points, caller.
I was really nervous to
You
start,
did good.
but
You covered a lot.
I've been waiting for a while to speak, and I think I've even been quiet to not speak up because people might recognize my voice and
Yes.
where I work and
Wow.
all that.
Well,
I'm
that's
just like,
the unfortunate thing.
and we
yeah,
should be
or
able to
depression.
have a
Yeah,
proper
for real.
open dialogue.
And that's even cause for concern, all the censorship.
Yes.
So, but
And
thank you for calling in.
thank you
You
for
know,
your
appreciate it, though.
All right.
All right.
Yes.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is it? Oh, is another person coming in? I'm sorry.
503 FM. Caller, you are live. Do not curse.
Greetings, enlightened ones.
Yes. Greetings.
Thank you for taking my call,
Mm-hmm.
and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cut straight to the point. For those of us who know about the ultimate agenda, as the young lady who just called in mentioned already.
Can you turn down your radio?
Yes, I'm trying to do that now.
Hello?
Still here.
Yeah, she's good. You probably got to turn your radio off.
Yeah, you got your
Okay.
echo on.
Yes, I was saying for the young lady who just called, she's saying not enough discussions are being held, and I want to draw reference to the ultimate agenda, which we know is, most of us do know that it's the ultimate power and control from this world system. So I would like to just mention that these things be addressed rather than we keep on going around in circles about this COVID, the vaccine, and everything else that this entails. Can we have transparency about the ultimate agenda and how we stand as people who do not choose to get this vaccine or be involved in this whole thing? How can we live beyond this earth? Please, these are the talks that I would like to see come to pass.
Well, give thanks for bringing that, because it's a question that we all face, and so that's part of the reason that we're on this show, because people are like, okay, so what do we do?
Right.
And what we're trying to to help people to really understand is that this is something that we all need to be supportive of. Short of that, then there are consequences that, we will all find ourselves facing, whether we understand that now or not. So what can we do? We all need to prepare ourselves to support whatever moves are made to push back on the type of discrimination or overt control that is attempting to be implemented or has already been implemented and put in place now. And so anything that you see that comes out to support it, to push back, make sure that you're there. We need to be willing to stand in our truth and show our governments, and this is not just in Bermuda, this is all around the world. We need to show our governments that they have been put in place to represent our interests,
Yes.
not the reverse. And if they're not representing our interests, it's our responsibility to let them know that. So this is to address people who are fearful of speaking up. It's your right. It's actually your responsibility. It's
Okay.
actually our all responsibility to speak up and to stand together, because short of that, we're going to find ourselves, right, going down a road that we don't want to go down, because everyone was having personal conversations with each other and not speaking truth to power.
I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you so much, Eugene. I made it my business to call in today and really address this to the point, because I believe that this is what we need to be talking about.
Yes.
How we're going to overcome together as a people
Yes,
in
for
unity,
real.
respect, honor,
Yes.
and love for
That-
one another.
For one another.
It's time for us to put all these behaviors that we've known all this time behind us and move forward together.
Yes.
Please, people, unite.
Yes. Give
Thank
thanks.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you very
Peace and love.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
503 FM, and the lines are still open. Now, we're getting ready to wrap it up, so we're going to take about 2 or 3 more calls. I would just like to ask the callers, to keep it short, keep it straight, and get the point out. 503 FM, hold on.
Okay.
What do you take from what you just said?
Well, I think we have to fight it with what we see coming out. We can't go right to the end game because that's not been revealed, as she said, that we don't
Yes.
know. I don't even know if everybody.
Okay.
Understands what the end game is. Yeah.
Well, we have another caller. Caller, welcome to 503 FM. You are live. Please do not curse.
All right, good morning to you guys, and definitely cursing is not, it's been heard, but it's definitely not in the vocabulary. I'm going to
Yes.
speak to you from the mental health perspective. I'm a mental health practitioner here on island, and of course, I'll share this. 3 decades, so I always start conversations with this is what I know. So this is what I know, and right now we have our country and our world in a state of what we call dissonance. And you can sow dissonance, and dissonance just basically, you look up the word, it just means discord. It actually can put you in a state of imbalance. So right now, people's personal belief systems are challenged, things that I typically thought were okay to do. And again, it's another word I use in my practice called intentional. Can I imbalance your life right now? Of course. I can go turn on my radio, and you can hear all the squeaking and squelching and stuff like that. And you're like, hey, turn it off, man. Turn your radio down. And if I don't, dissonance is going to occur because I'm going to get disconnected, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty? So what I do know is we have just a lot of imbalance in our community. And what is it that you can do? Because everybody can see very, very clearly that the prevailing narrative is here's what I want you to do, and if I can just sort of challenge your psyche and challenge your beliefs and constantly do that, I'm going to create imbalance in you, and you're going to question your own self. The reality of life, of course, is you have to be just accepting of the path that you're going to take. And I tell anybody this, okay? Don't believe a word I say. I share that with people. Don't believe a word I say. What I want you to do is to dig deep. Dig deep within. Research it's more than reading. Research is getting into the lab. Research is understanding. Let me put this in your hand and let me show you what happens, okay? And then research just says, well, where was the source of this information? So there's so much to be done. And, the super challenge right now is just there are people who are absolutely petrified and frightened in their houses and their households. And I know when I speak to leadership, I say, our role is not to create imbalance. Our role is to create balance. And in this life, I teach my kids there's a circle of life. We have no idea how big your circle is going to be or how small it's going to be, but the challenge is always to be a thinking person. And a thinking person is one, and this is just where I share my philosophy, a thinking person is one that will just not apply logic, but they'll apply that visual acuity that says, let me take a look at this and let me see what is done. So right now there's, when I tell people, everybody has an agenda, and what's yours? Okay, and if yours as an agenda is to inform, if your as an agenda is to create balance, then let's take a look at what that looks like. So for people, I always indicate from the mental health perspective, what is it that you can do, okay? Because right now, if your anxiety is high, and you can imagine, everybody potentially has a variety of stories. I've dealt with young people who just basically have said to me, let me tell you what I'm doing, man. I'm not going to have any consultation with anybody. I'm just going to get in line. I'm just going to do this. And I'm like, okay, so you did this, and you already know that there is a history of something that you deal with in your family. I don't care about, I just need to be able to go away and live my life, man, and whatever happens, happens. And so with that, I would just challenge that thinking that just says, I'm just going to, people are telling me to do this, and I'm just going to do this. They say it's going to say, they say. Let's dig a little bit deeper than what it is that they say. So I do know, appreciate you guys. I did shoot you guys an email because one of the things that's also possible, maybe, I don't know, I'm not in radio land, but it's just to see if the scope of your voice and the scope of your station can go bigger. Like this particular conversation could be on social media where, it's your live streaming and people can answer questions. I don't know if it is.
It's on the Bermuda Freedom Alliance Facebook page streaming right now.
I try to check that out to see exactly where it was. And then again, as we know, what is knowledge? Okay, we should always be seeking knowledge. So just want to encourage yourselves, your listeners, everybody in the listening world. If you are in a state of dissonance, if you're in a state of balance, imbalance, just seek your truth, breathe in, breathe out, know that you're still here. I dealt with a little guy that said to me, you know what, my friends used to say that you have bad breath and they would run away from you, but now your breath can actually kill someone. And our little people are walking away with that in their psyches, that I could actually breathe around my friend or my mate, and I have the power to alter his life or the power to alter my Nana's life. Yes. But we're still here. Yes. And that is the message. We are still here.
Well, thank you very much, caller.
Yeah, very, very
thanks.
Well.
Couple powerful points. So we're going to take two more calls, and then we're going to get the closing remarks from Eugene Dean and
Arlene Brewster. Yeah, that comment by that gentleman was very interesting, because the mental health side has not been really discussed
in many ways. What is your take on, just call this hotline and talk to somebody?
I think a lot of it can be dispelled right from the beginning. If it's not brought into it, the person from the top, then it won't have to need the hotline even.
Okay. Yeah, for real. Yeah, for real.
We're going to take our last call right now, and then I'm going to get my closing arguments from you. Hold on one second. All right. Closing arguments. 503 FM, caller, you're live on the air. Do not curse.
Hi, Lance. I just want to talk about maybe a legal side with some of the stuff they want to implement. Recently, I have spoken to people that have been vaccinated but have never gotten a test. So I'm like, why not? And they're like, because we're vaccinated. Okay, fine. But say a group of people go out for dinner or lunch, and unvaccinated people who tested negative, they're sitting outside. And the vaccinated people are sitting inside. But say a vaccinated person is with a negative result who gets tested, is made to sit outside. The vaccinated persons are inside, and then all of a sudden, somebody shows up positive for COVID. So can the unvaccinated person now who tested negative have an issue with vaccinated people who have never been tested testing positive? It's a lot of variables to what they want to implement with the key. It's not a guarantee. I know some people simply got vaccinated so they wouldn't have to take the test because a lot of people are scared of the test going up their nose. Even though there's options, they are just scared of that aspect. So you have a bunch of vaccinated people who feel they shouldn't have to get tested. And I'm like, with what they're implementing, legal-wise, if something goes to court, it can open up a big Pandora's box, on the legal side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the discriminatory practices, you're discriminating on a maybe, and it goes back to that scenario. Maybe the vaccinated person might pass it, but then you've got an unvaccinated person who's continuously getting tested that's negative. So who is more for danger? A vaccinated person who's never been tested, or unvaccinated person who regularly gets tested? They haven't thought of all the variables when it comes to each situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cut and dry, and it could open up a lot of legal ramifications.
Well, what you're pretty much saying is that it gets very complicated.
Yeah.
Actually, the more you talk about it, the more confusing it gets.
Yeah,
So we're here inviting all this complication and confusion right into our community and around things that affect our everyday lives. I see Arlene was going to say something too.
Exactly.
That
And
scenario.
also with the coming in to the airport, and you look at, videos going around right now of the opening of Regis, and it's about say-so. Who do we believe? Oh, because I'm at the party, everybody's vaccinated. And we all know what happens in the world, fake IDs, or somebody's going to speak up, oh, yes, they're vaccinated, whether vaccinated or not, because I know you. And it's going to be quid pro quo. That's not pretend that doesn't happen. And this is a breeding ground, and it's being treated, this whole situation is being treated as if it's a permanent thing, and it's not. Because smallpox for 2 years was a big issue, and it simmered down to this one. It's being treated like the Barclayites, Rustification, keep the end in view but never get there. People have to be mindful of what they're allowing to happen and know that we should be demanding an end time. What's happened next? What is the end game? What is next after the pandemic?
Right.
It seems like they want us to live in a state of pandemic or endemic situation because there is a lot of money to be made. All of a sudden we got keys and we had bracelets and we had the keys earlier on with the hotels. That's supposed to take time. That's a certain technology, but we had them all in place. So people have to be mindful of what's going on the outside too, because it's a lot of money to be made with this pandemic. And they're trying to all of a sudden vilify unvaccinated people. So if you want to go there, let's find out where did this pandemic come from.
Yes.
If you're that concerned, if it's that deadly, find out the country that's responsible, and let's go from there. Because you cannot make unvaccinated people the problem
Yes.
or the evil ones. When if you're going to do that, you have to in turn, who started this? Where did it come from? You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, thank you very much for your point, caller.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you for your
give
call.
thanks. Yeah.
And thank you for bringing this forum
Yes.
and
Yes,
having
ma'am.
all the doctors on.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and just following on to that point, what also you're unable to do is vaccinate the entire world, especially when the global population grows by tens of millions of people every year.
503 FM. Caller, you are live. Do not curse.
I won't curse. Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Just briefly, I read a report that was published on March 31st of this year by doctors out of the University of California in San Diego. And what they did, they wanted to see what the spike protein would do in the absence of the virus. And so they separated the spike protein from the virus. And they found that the spike protein causes mitochondrial fragmentation in vascular cells. That is in the absence of the virus. So that led me to be concerned as far as what is the danger with the spike proteins, because those who have been inoculated, the bodies are producing spike proteins, yes?
Yes.
So what does that say? That's what came to my mind when I read that report. They said that the virus alone seems, we can handle that. Most people can manage the virus, like if it was just that, without that spike protein that was placed in it or whatever. However, that spike protein got in combination with the virus, but they separated the two, and they said that the primary danger is in the spike protein.
Right. Well, it's interesting, and I'm sure there's a number of different studies that's coming out, and the biggest concern around it is that we just don't know, right? It's so much that's not known. And then you got a situation where things are being pushed on people, and then people are being punished, for not being receptive to it, So
Indeed, and I just say for those that have been inoculated, be humble, because you don't know, and you could be a danger to me. And I'll be honest, I'm going to put it out there. I have been around in close proximity, and I started experiencing menstruation issues that I have not had before.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Everyone,
much,
peace and blessings.
yes,
And keep elevating. Stand firm.
Yes. All right. Peace and love. Yeah, that is. Jesus.
503 FM. Caller, you are live. Do not curse.
Do not curse. Good morning, 103 and panel. I just wanted to take time to appeal to your radio station to appeal to the vaccinated and not vaccinated to stop the discrimination. I say that because just this week, Thursday, I'm in a parking lot, okay, trying to ride out. One spot left. Bike rides up next to me. Somebody known to me. So I'm like, hey, what happened to these 6 feet? Look, that's why I got vaccinated. Because of the discrimination. I said, are you vaccinated? I said, that's none of your business. But I'm saying to you that, you need to social distance. So I'm leaning my bike over, and they're still going about, I'm vaccinated. That's why I go right up. No. Vaccinated or not vaccinated, you're not protected from catching this virus. And them that's being vaccinated just got this thing, okay, drop my mask, I can roll up in people's faces, and, so I'm saying stop the divide. Use your common sense. You don't know exactly how you're catching the virus or, how it's being spread. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect the next person. I'm appealing to the driver, the walker, the runner, the rider, because they tell you line up in the grocery shops, keep your distance going in places of business and stuff. But nobody's telling you that about parking. And when you're out there walking and running, because, the walkers and runners are exempted from wearing masks. But, I've only experienced one person in this last year that's actually right across the other side of the road. They're coming directly at you. So, mind your umbrellas. I believe this is all man-made, But at the same time, I'm got to use my common sense. I think we all should use that. So, let's be mindful and respectful of the next person. And, for now, keep your distance. I'm not trying to catch nobody's cold, nobody's flu, no type of sickness right now. Okay. I'm not, you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's what I'm asking the public, just be mindful. Respect each other,
Okay.
And the other thing is, we are the voters. We hold the power. So, you got a voice be heard, Stand up and fight. Not for our generation, but for the next generation that's coming up. If we sit back and just accept this and accept that and say, okay, yeah, that's all right, we'll be stuck in mass and what do you call house arrest and cuff you in place and this for the next. Did you see the opening? No mask?
Well, apparently a lot of people saw it.
It's
But
a video,
give thanks. It's come up a few times on the
yes.
show,
It's the video is live and direct. And, you had the virus. You had the vaccination. You caught the virus. Y'all are leader.
Yeah, well, it's one set of rules, right? We make rules for people, not for ourselves. Or do
we
as I
also have
say, not as I do.
Wow.
Yeah, but we have the power to change these things. And if we just sit back and accept these things, then they're going to be even worse, Like I said, we need to just stand up and fight for our rights, Okay, how long? We don't know everything that you asked us to do. What's the end result?
Yeah, give thanks,
Yeah.
Well, thank you, caller.
Have a great day. Thank you.
All right.
And please have more of these.
Okay.
Alrighty, thank you to all of the callers. Phone lines are now closed, and yeah, man, I'm gonna play a little song and then come back and get some closing remarks from Eugene Dean and Miss Arlene, and some more information on how you can support and follow the Bermuda Freedom Alliance. Alrighty, Vibe 103 FM. 103 FM, your energy station, and I'm missing out on the jokes going on in the studio, but I'm gonna get a big shout out to Miss Arlene Brewster. Big shout out to Eugene Dean. Big shout out to Dr. Amani Flood. And big shout out to Dr. Connie Frith. I got everybody's name right. And we're going to get some closing remarks from our panel here. Who's going to start?
I'll start.
I'll start.
I'll start the finish. Just keeping it on the discriminatory mandates. The unintended consequences. The mandate that started it all, I believe, was the secure facility quarantine for unvaccinated. But that's going to be so hard to manage because a lot of the people who think they're vaccinated and fully immunized now, you could get a cold that you have to go for an operation in 7 months. You think, okay, I'm good, I've got my vax, I'm going to go, come back, and they're going to say, well, really, you're not because you needed a booster at 3 months or you need it just now at 6 months. So it's a lot of information, always changing. And that they're just going to be in the same boat as us one day, and we're here to fight against it for you.
Okay. Mr. Dean?
Yes, give thanks, Arlene. And again, I would just like to encourage everyone in the community to support any efforts to push back on this. Call your member of parliament in your area, email them, speak to all of your family. Anytime you hear that there's another freedom rally or is a protest or is some opportunity for us to stand together collectively to show our concern for this and to let our government, who was put in power to represent our interests, know that this mandate and any other mandates or actions that lead to discrimination or are based on discrimination are not in our interest, and as a result, we do not support them. It's imperative that we push back on this. It is imperative that our voices be heard, and that will only be effective if we all stand together. So please ignore any suggestions that those who are protesting are irresponsible, unintelligent, and have no sound rationale for their actions. There is rationale beyond belief behind this. And there are a number of people who have been afraid to speak out, again, for good reason, because the environment that's been created in this country has oppressed people in ways that they have to think about the consequences associated with them even just speaking their truth. Freedom of speech is a reality. If we don't stand for our freedoms, then we will leave ourselves and future generations to be controlled. We will suffer the consequences of these mandates that may be put in place with good intentions in mind, just not really fully understanding the consequences of what they will do to our country. And many times in history, we've seen this before. It's not what we intend to do, is what actually happens in reality that makes a difference. So as a country, I encourage all young people, all elders, regardless of race, political preference, sexual orientation, gender, class, financial status, we all need to come together to support any initiatives that are put together to push back on discriminatory mandates for this country. it will ruin us, and we all can't afford for that to happen. We need to be free. We need to live our lives and be able to be prosperous and enjoy our families. Otherwise, what's the point of living at all? Give thanks.
And I would like to just say a couple things, and I promise I'll make this as short as possible, because I do want everyone to continue to enjoy this beautiful Sunday, and then continue to enjoy the vibes and the music that we deliver from this radio station. I just want to thank the doctors that were brave to come out. I want to thank Eugene and Arlene for being here today, and just a couple things that I would like to finish on. They say that 47% of the population has been fully immunized in regards to the vaccine, receiving the vaccine. I just was curious as to how they've come up with that number, because I'm guessing that's just the people that are eligible for it. So I just like to kind of, if someone can answer that question one day, that would be great. I think an option that the government or whoever is in charge of implementing protocols, a good option that could be implemented could be where you can purchase health insurance upon arrival into Bermuda. So that way, if it avoids the hospitals and all that the potential being put into financial situation. I know that they're using that in Costa Rica. You purchase health insurance in order to access the country. I think that could be an option. I think in regards to the safe key that's being implemented and rolled out, instead of you being it just only solely being proof of being vaccinated or having a test and it being valid for 3 days, why can't an antibody test be used as a safe key? Why get a vaccine when it is 99.98% chance of survival rate, majority of the age group? I know that proper clinical trials take at least 5 years to be valid. Proper clinical trials. You need to get the age groups together, the race, the gender, who has underlying conditions, who doesn't. If so, what are they? You then have to compile. You also have to get x-rays and blood work and tissue samples and MRIs and CAT scans, etc. The list could go on. Then you have to compile all of that together and compare it with different countries and populations. And a question in regards to travel. If you end up getting a false positive, which I have heard that this has happened, if you end up getting a false positive before you travel, why can't you then request, when you do request to get another test done, why are you denied? And this is also very important. If it's so deadly, the COVID-19 virus, once you receive your positive result, you're just sent home to quarantine. Why are you not given options or advice on treatment? If it's so deadly and you have received a positive result, why are you then told to go home and quarantine for 2 weeks and not receive advice or treatment if it is so deadly? Children I could talk about forever. Poor little sights. I have 3 of them. The psychological impact that it's going to have on our children is heartbreaking. And like I said, I'm a mother of 3, and I love my children more than anything in the world. And this is why I'm here today, and this is why I'm speaking, because I cannot be silent for them. They deserve freedom. I've traveled the world. They deserve that same opportunity. And my closing note is this. Imagine a vaccine so safe, you have to be threatened to take it. For a disease so deadly, you have to be tested to know you have it. Happy Sunday and enjoy. Please, Bermuda, unite, come together, and let's just love one